Hello, and thank you for coming to Anderson Accounting. We appreciate you choosing our firm to help you with your tax needs. This is a new year, and there are a lot of changes involved with your tax return this year. First, the IRS has really gotten tough on the earned income tax credit. Please make sure that you've signed in with the receptionist and let her know that you're here to prepare your current year's return, or if you have multiple years' returns that need to be done. Also, please let her know if you have dependents that need a tax return as well to be prepared. Here's what I need you to do to help us in preparing your tax return. First, complete our questionnaire. Even if you filled one out last year, I need you to complete one this year. And this year we have changed the section, Filing Status. It is now about marital status. It is just a simple yes or no question about, are you married on the last day of the year? The next two questions determine your filing status options, because if you and your spouse can only file married filing jointly or married filing separate. Married filing jointly puts you and your spouse on the same return and combines everything, which means your income tax credit is based on your income and your spouse's. If you or your spouse has IRS or other government agency type obligations, the IRS will seize your refund. Married filing separately will protect you against this, but it also disallows you to get the earned income tax credit. The only way a married person can use the filing status head of household is if they did not live in the same house for the last 6 months of the year, or if they have filed for legal separation on December 31. We need a copy of the legal separation or proof that you do not live with your spouse from June 30th to December 31. Once you have completed our questionnaire, please give it back to the receptionist with your valid picture ID, Social Security card for you and both your dependents, the birth certificates, and most importantly, all the tax information that is going to be used in preparation of your tax return. Let's talk about the information I've asked for you to hand to the receptionist. First, a valid ID. We have to have a valid government-issued pictured ID. For example, driver's license, state ID, passport, or military ID. Any ID that you got from the government agency with your picture on it, plus it needs to be current. So if it has expired, you need to go and get it renewed now. I cannot use an outdated ID and will be unable to complete your tax return today. Next, the Social Security cards. The reason that they're important for you and your dependent is that they can have the information on them that the Social Security Administration has given to the Internal Revenue Service. For example, your name, how it's spelled, and the Social Security number. Now, let's talk about the birth certificates. For your dependent, they're really important. If you're a taxpayer that gets the earned income tax credit, plus they give us the data the Social Security Administration gives to the IRS. If you're a taxpayer that gets the earned income tax credit, when you really need to get a copy of the real birth certificate. The real birth certificate is one that is not, the real birth certificate is one from the hospital or the Bureau of Vital Statistics. The little birth certificate card that South Carolina DHAC passes out is not a valid birth certificate. Now, the real birth certificate will have the baby's name on it, the baby's birthday, and the parent's name. Having the name of the parents on the birth certificate is what the IRS wants to prove your relationship to the child and meets the IRS's due diligence requirement. We may have to get that from you prior to completing your return. If the relationship to your dependent is something other than son or daughter, we may need multiple birth certificates to build your family tree and prove the relationship to your dependent. If you're getting the earned income tax credit, we may have to get other additional documents as well. Now, for all that stuff you're holding, W-2s, 1099-R, 1099 miscellaneous, unemployment statements, Social Security benefits, interest income, dividend income, stock sales, or 1099-B, business or rental income and expense information, and all those lovely deductions, mortgage interest, property taxes, charity, medical, and unreimbursed employee expenses. Guess what? Hand them over to the receptionist. She will need to scan them in, and she'll put them in your file when she does your return and has it ready for you. Please make sure that if your dependent has a W-2, that you get a file for them now, so that we can keep their information separate from yours because they may need to file their own tax return. We do not need to add their income to your return, so get a separate folder for that dependent now from the receptionist. Now, let's talk about check stubs. Without the W-2s and 1099s, we cannot use the last check stub and will not, because the IRS does not allow a return to be electronically filed without the W-2. We will only give you an estimate from with a check stub, period. We will not do a tax return unless you have a valid W-2 or 1099. If you have business income or work for cash with no taxes taken out, we will need to get the summary sheet that has your income and expenses total on it for the year. Expenses should be broken down into categories like repairs, supplies, office expense, etc., with a total of each category for the year. If you do not have this, you'll need to get an organizer from the receptionist to help guide you in preparing this information. If you're getting the Earned Income Tax Credit, I will have to have one of these filled out by you before you come into the preparer's office, because the IRS requires you to go through your records to get the numbers, and you can't find them in our office unless you put them on the organizer first. The IRS does not allow you to use estimates like $12,000 of income. You will see that in some of the videos that are shown after this. If you're getting the Earned Income Tax Credit and do not complete our organizer, we will not do your return until you have done so. You cannot fill it out in front of the preparer. You have to go back and find your records, because we may ask you to show us the records where you got the numbers from. If you sold stock or had a brokerage account that had some stock activity in it, we will have to have the realized gain or loss statement from the stock, or if you can't get that, we'll have to have the date purchased, the date sold, the total cost, and the sales proceeds. Without that information, we will be unable to complete your return. Again, please hand all information to the receptionist so that we can speed up the tax preparation process as much as possible, because it slows things down when someone gives us another form in our office. I then have to go and give that to the receptionist, have it scanned into your file, which is time consuming. I have taken time to work with the receptionist so they can help me do a better job, so please comply with her request. She is only going to ask for things that will help get your return done quickly. When you get into the preparer's office, we cannot play what-if games, like what if I had a dependent child. If you did not provide 50% support for a dependent, that is your son, daughter, niece, nephew, brother, sister, grandchild, or foster child, and they did not live with you for more than 6 months last year, you cannot, I repeat, you cannot claim this dependent and get the Earned Income Tax Credit. If you are self-employed, working for cash, you can only claim all the income you made, and you must claim all the expenses to produce that income. If your income minus expenses is not $12,000, your Earned Income Credit is based on what you really did. So, if you did not do it, you cannot claim it. If you're going to try to complete a tax return for another adult, we must have a completed IRS Form 2848 or other legal power of attorney duly executed. Now, for the first video clip we have gotten from the IRS is about due diligence. This video will help explain what the IRS is requiring of us. If you are a taxpayer that gets the Earned Income Tax Credit, the most important point is we cannot know or expect a taxpayer is reporting false information. If we suspect that when we're getting the information from you, you may have to provide us additional information to prove that you are telling the truth. And again, thank you for using Anderson Accounting, and please watch the first video that we have gotten for you from the Internal Revenue Service.